Disc golf has finally gone mainstream, but not in the way we might want. What's up, Disgenerates? It's the Disc Golf World. I'm Jefferson, and alongside me, the one with all the holes in this game, Swiss Cheese, breaking down everything you need to know from the Music City Open. The week didn't start great for the tournament, with the weather causing major issues early, which resulted in the cancellation of the match play event. We're still waiting on an announcement for the official reschedule, so make sure to subscribe to not miss out when that becomes available. The rain didn't stop there, and soon tornadoes would hit the ground, forcing play to halt and be moved. Thankfully, somehow all 3 rounds were able to be played and champions crowned, but we'll get to that in a minute. First, I need to give big props to the dgpt along with the local community for putting in the hard work to ensure the tournament could continue, bringing in tons of mulch and doing absolutely whatever was needed. Shout out to everyone for making it happen, even if the commentary wanted to dog the course whenever possible. Don't get me wrong, I'm not the biggest Mill Ridge fan, but I swear Brian and Charlie made sure I knew all the flaws and which holes needed to be tweaked. Not sure if they were trying to give some tips for next year, or possibly a little bit of foreshadowing, because from everything I've heard, this was the last year at this course. Don't quote me on that, just what I've heard from the Nashville homies. Aaron Gossage also expressed his opinion on the state of disc golf at the end of his practice round.
4 courses in a row, they've all gotten shorter, and they've all gotten woodsier. They took out that huge, super long par 3, and they replaced it with like a little chip par 3.
Yeah.
I don't know, guys. Is this the direction you guys want to see disc golf going? Do you want every course to be shorter? Do you want to be more like Waco? Do you want, tons of people to be in contention? Whoever shoots, 3-12 downs wins the tournament. I don't know. It's a weird kind of golf to me. I've thought in the past 3 years that we've been playing that we were trending towards longer, more technical, more challenging, tighter OBs, things like that. Make the scores a lot closer to par. But seems like we're going the other direction this year.
Do you think disc golf is headed in the right direction, or do we need to change things up? Let us know your thoughts down below, because at the end of the day, what the fans enjoy watching most is where we should emphasize how things are going. This weekend, disc golf had a glimpse of mainstream controversy. Guess I can't really say that since the video of Abigail Wilson has gone viral. I'm talking over millions of views spread across social media platforms everywhere. I actually first heard of the topic through a random X account on my timeline. If you don't know what I'm referencing, here's the clip.
Females must be protected in our division. This is unfair. I refuse to play.
This had many fans looking how they can get their own signature series disc from Abigail, even expressing so on Castaplast's comment section. That wasn't available. And from what she said, this could have just ruined her chances of ever getting one. And I read that on Fox News. Nah, I'm just kidding. But there were plenty of mainstream news outlets covering the topic, which featured Abigail bringing up other points of contention that forced the dgpt to respond. It was stated on the Daily Wire that prior to the tournament, she was reprimanded for misgendering a player on her card. As she said, the concerns were brought up due to the planned protest against the trans-identifying player. And even last year, a terrorism threat was made against the same player at this exact event. After that incident, there were bag checks put into place by authorities. I know this because my bag was checked, and I remember because it was on 420. In the article, Wilson said the dgpt did a terrible job of keeping us safe during the event when this was called. She then went on to explain that a disc golf staff member told her that if she misgendered any player again, that she would be penalized and removed from the tour. If that is true, would be wild. Even if they would pull some sort of discrimination consequence. Or possibly was a person with no actual authority who didn't agree with Abigail's stance trying to make a point. And either way, kind of a crazy thing to say out loud. And to her face? Back to the security issues, because as Wilson said, there were 0 security precautions.
Where are all the police? Why weren't they checking bags?
They didn't check bags. The guy on the call lied. There was no police, no bag checking, nothing.
But Jeff Spring would respond saying there was security on site, including an on-duty police officer, plainclothes security staff, and armed security guards, along with them conducting bag checks. Also clearing the rumor that she would be punished, as Jeff said she did not violate any rules or policies. This would be followed with an article posted by the dgpt clarifying policy and security measures following the protest, And not just Abigail, but others on site as well. The day before, they also released an article discussing if the president's executive order on women's sports affects the current policy for the DGPT. For those unfamiliar, that only affects sports that receive federal funding, which the Pro Tour does not. Along with that, the settlement conditions back from the 2023 lawsuit would remain throughout the 2025 season, so there will be no changes until then or until the Olympic Committee says something different. I haven't seen either of these articles pushed out very publicly, so the links are in the description if you want to further read on the topic. But for now, Swiss, hit the people with the FPO recap.
Amidst protests, forfeits, and poor weather, the FPO action and the storylines that carried with it were enough that all the other topics became secondary. But who are we kidding? Anything's better than the threats of violence from last year. MCO jumped out with Missy Gannon coming out early for a hot round performance in what was her highest rated round of her up and down start to her 2025 season with a 7-under round. Silva Saarinen, with her on-the-course T1000 aura, recovered after her first bogey on the day on 11, would end up birdieing 5 of the next 7 holes, 4 of which to close out her round, the final 2 needing absolute clutch C2 putts to tie Missy at 7 under herself. The 2 separated from the pack a full 4 strokes ahead of Kristen Lett and Evelina Salonen. And Silva would need all 4 of those strokes to stave off a charging Kristen the very next day, as Lett put down another one of her legendary performances on day 2, setting the course record with an 11-under, 1047 rated round that finished with 7 straight birdies no less. But the young Finn would battle back and keep or maintain her lead for the entire round with a 7-under herself, and hitting huge putts like on 10 to do so, setting what would be another final day battle between the two, which sure has been one-sided as Kristen has chased her down a number of times in the past. Once for the largest comeback in FPO history, and let's not mention last year's Green Mountain Championship that was ugly also. However, for Silva, the story couldn't line up any better. For her to get her first victory in the States, she would need to go through a European and arguably one of her biggest nightmares and best to possibly ever play the sport to do so. And it would be Saarinen that would take an early lead after a birdie on 2. The 2 would end up matching birdies on 3, 5, and 7, only for Lett to erase the deficit with a chef's kiss 47-foot birdie putt on hole 8. Silva's response was her parking her approaches on the very next 2 holes for tap-in birdies and takes a 2-stroke lead, only for Kristen to find OB on the very next hole for a double bogey, expanding that lead to 4 strokes with 7 holes remaining. The very 7 holes Kristen birdied the day prior. During the final round, this time she would birdie 6 of the final 7. The biggest just might have been on 17, where she buried a C2 putt in the heart of the chains from 37 feet for a 2-stroke swing, putting pressure on Silva's 1-stroke lead heading into 18, where she birdied each of the prior days. If all the past storylines and it coming down to the final hole wasn't enough pressure, to go on top of that, Kristen, who threw first, only hits the bullseye off her drive. From there, Silva honestly broke and took the par, and another playoff between the two would ensue. This one heading where the day's biggest moment occurred prior, hole 17. Sure, the cards were stacked in Lett's favor, Silva having to still throw while going through the mental gymnastics that the entire day has brought. But let's not take away the performance that Kristen had on that final hole. She still delivered in that moment, playing the hole to near perfection and the best she had over the entire 3 days. For what has now been her second three-peat victory this season already, and 3rd Gibson guitar, Silva left in tears as another victory slips through her grasp, as her closing out victories here in the States has now become a narrative.
On the MPO side, still named Richard Wysocki ended day 1 on top of the leaderboard at 8 under, tied with Isaac Robinson. However, on day 2, on day 3, kinda. What I'm saying is they started the round on Saturday, but as Ryan Hall predicted, the severe weather was too much with the danger of tornadoes. The second round picking back up earlier than the Sunday cartoons, the players would finish it up. That would begin the downfall for Wysocki, as he couldn't get back his momentum. But the opposite was happening to Paul Macbeth, who ended part 1 with 6 pars, Kicked off part 2 with 6 birdies, pushing up into a tie with the shortest shorts wearer on tour. Austin Turner would put together an 8 under in position for the best finish of his career. Just needs to hold off the Finnish Cowboy and the Peach Pirate. It didn't take long before fans knew they were strapped in for a battle, as Paul, Austin, and Nicolas all took easy birdies to keep pace. On hole 3, many thought McBeast would be making his return with a beautiful flex putt into the heart of the chains when he had no business making that. Turner would be the first to make a mistake, going out of bounds on hole 4, resulting in a second par of the round, quickly dropping 2 strokes to Ansela and Macbeth, who continued their birdie streak. Holes 5 and 6 would be no different, until Paul would find himself under a tree on hole 7, looking up at the elevated basket. Some will say that should have stuck. Others will say the rain made the chains wet. Either way, that would be the first par of the round, allowing Nicolas to take his first stroke. This would kick off a par stretch for Macbeth, who would miss his first circle 1 putt on hole 9, which would give another stroke to Ansela, who now would have a share of the lead. Also around this time, Gannon Buhr would be making a push himself, going 10 down through 11 with no signs of slowing down. Nicolas would miss C1X putts on hole 11 before popping off for 3 birdies in a row. Opportunities now dwindling, with everyone else hopping on the birdie train. Heading into hole 15 with Austin back in the running and Gannon doing his best to put the pressure on, Paul would make his biggest mistake yet, throwing his drive out of bounds. With the door now open, Ansela would be staring down a long circle 2 putt, only to drain it for the birdie and 2-stroke lead. Even gave a verbal "let's go," something we don't see often from the emotionless Cowboy. From there, all he had to do was play clean, and on the easiest hole in the world that is 16, there was only 2 holes left to play, but let's be real, he's not giving that up after shooting the course record. Winning back-to-back Pro Tour events, this time gum in mouth, and now his new signature guitar. He just needs to learn how to play the damn thing. Gannon Buhr would also set the new course record at 13 under, tying him with Austin at 2nd place. This would be Turner's best finish of his career after being dropped by DGA and sponsorless all last season, and not knowing if he would be on tour again this year. Looks like he made the right decision, kind of like using the Zin Tin as a mini. And that's everything you need to know from the Music City Open. This weekend, the Go Throw Tour has their 3rd event and possibly the most anticipated, with the $50,000 purse. Make sure to subscribe to not miss out on the recap next Monday. I want to give a huge shout out to everyone supporting over on the Patreon. You guys are the absolute best, which is why we have a new unfiltered podcast just for you guys. Episode 1 is out already, so what are you doing? Go check it out, or throw some plastic or something. I don't really know.